If you're thinking about taking a cruise, there's a chance that the thought of feeling seasick is making you a little nervous. I've taken more than 50 cruises, and I've never really felt seasick until my last cruise. On my most recent trip, I spent the majority of my sea day feeling pretty sorry for myself in my cabin, and that's why I wanted to put this video together today. In this video, I'm going to share with you 8 ways to prevent and cure seasickness. Some of these tips are measures that you'll want to take before your cruise ship leaves the port, and some of them are things that you can do if you begin to feel unsettled or unwell while you're out at sea. If you enjoy this video today, and if you find it useful, then please do consider supporting my channel by clicking both the thumbs up and the subscribe buttons. I use my YouTube channel to share all of my cruise tips and advice with you to hopefully help you have the best cruise possible when your time to board comes around. Before we jump in to the list of 8 things that you can do to prevent and cure seasickness, I do want to stress that the chances of you feeling severely seasick on your cruise are relatively small. Most cruise ships nowadays come fitted with stabilisers of some sort that work relatively similarly to the stabilisers that you might remember on the side of your bike growing up as a child. They essentially operate on either side of the ship and they aim to stabilise the onboard experience, therefore making it much more comfortable for all of the passengers on board. Now, why do they do this? It's really simple. Think about it. If you have a cruise ship full of passengers and 50% of them are feeling unwell, that's 50% of passengers who will probably be relaxing in their cabin, taking it easy and not doing anything elsewhere around the ship. That means that you've got half of your passengers who are not spending money in the upcharge restaurants. They're not spending money in the shops, they're not in the casino, and they're not buying drinks at the bars. In other words, it's in a cruise line's best interest to keep the passengers safe and well. And one of the ways that they can do that is by trying to stabilise the ship to deliver the smoothest passenger experience possible. Now, that said, some cruise ships will experience motion, and at the end of the day, you are floating on the top of the ocean, which is entirely out of a cruise line's control. That means that you are absolutely doing the right thing by doing a little bit of research now to understand what you can do before your cruise to hopefully prevent seasickness coming on in the first place, but also finding out what you can do if you're on board and you start to feel unwell. Let's get started on the first of 8 things. First, take travel sickness tablets or medication on your cruise with you. There are so many different brands available out there. The one that I always pack is called Stugaron, and it's available in the majority of supermarkets or pharmacies here in the UK, which is where I'm based. Some cruise ships will offer complimentary or free seasickness medication if the weather's rough or if you're feeling a little bit under the weather. It's always best to not depend on that and just take your own. It's relatively inexpensive to go to a shop and buy it. If you're on a cruise ship that doesn't offer you complimentary seasickness tablets, you'll probably find you'll be able to buy them from the onboard pharmacy or the onboard medical centre, or maybe even one of the onboard shops. Lots of cruise ships will have shops that will offer basic toiletries and medication, for example, paracetamol, ibuprofen, seasickness tablets, the list goes on and on. You can also buy seasickness medication from places like Amazon. I actually have my own Amazon store, which you can find down in the pinned comment on this video. There, you can order right now and they'll ship it straight to your house. It is worth mentioning that you usually have to take these seasickness tablets before you experience any motion. The general rule of thumb here is that if you've never taken a cruise before, it's best practice to take a tablet before the ship leaves the port on the first night of the cruise. You might find a few nights in, you feel okay, and you choose to not take it. And to be honest, what's the worst that could happen in that scenario? So yes, number 1, pack some seasickness medication with you for your cruise. Number 2, consider booking a cruise on a more landlocked body of water. I didn't think about this until I took a cruise last year that was pretty far from the open ocean throughout the trip. I've experienced rough seas in places like the North Sea, the Mediterranean, and also the Caribbean. It can really happen anywhere. But what I've found is that your chances of experiencing rough seas are a lot lower if you've got more land around. Let me give you an example. I took a cruise in the Adriatic last year, which has countries like Italy, Croatia, and Montenegro nearby. This offered us a really sheltered cruising experience, and our sea conditions were similar to what I've seen on Norwegian fjords cruises or Alaskan cruises once you get into the inside passage. That means that the ship was so stable, and it was almost like you were cruising on top of a lake. I absolutely love when the sea does that. Now, on that point, on Norway and Alaska, these are two regions that I get asked about so often. People ask, what's the best time of year to get calm seas? How do I do that? Are the seas rough? To be honest, with those two regions, when you actually get there to, for example, Alaska's inside passage or the fjords in Norway, the sea conditions should be absolutely fine because you are really protected going through the fjords or going through the inside passage. The travel to get there, however, is the slightly more unpredictable part. A lot of Alaskan cruises will leave from places like Seattle, which means that you've got a day of travelling through the open ocean, and lots of Norwegian fjord cruises will leave from places like Southampton or maybe even Rosyth in Scotland. That means that you've got a day or two of cruising through the North Sea to get there. So you just have to put a little bit more thought into those itineraries. But generally speaking, if you're cruising in an area that's a bit more landlocked, you stand a better chance of having calmer seas. Number 3, wear a patch or wear sea bands. You might have noticed on previous cruises people wearing what looks like a plaster behind their ears, or maybe some sort of bracelet that looks pretty different to the sorts of jewellery that you're used to seeing. These are alternative medications that work with pressure point alignment throughout the body to help to stabilise you. For example, you wear the bracelets on your wrists, they apply a little bit of pressure to the pressure point here, and that works to then stabilise you. Personally, I think that these types of medication are a bit of a psychological thing, but I will admit that I did wear them for my first couple of cruises, and I didn't feel unwell at all, so it probably is well worth a try. You can buy these patches or sea bands from so many different places. Think your local pharmacy, or they're also available over on my Amazon store. Number 4, take it easy and go outside to get some fresh air. I meet lots of people on cruise ships who can feel a little bit under the weather, and they choose to relax in places like the onboard buffet, as an example. That means that they are within an air-conditioned environment, there's not really any fresh air, there's lots of food available, which we'll come back to shortly, and in my experience, it's not really the best place to be spending time if you're feeling a bit seasick. I find it so much easier to get out on deck and enjoy some of that fresh ocean air. After all, you're on a cruise, you're out at sea, it's so clear out there. As someone who often cruises in an inside cabin or an ocean view cabin, in other words, a cabin with a window, I tend to find it's best for me to go and sit out on the promenade deck. That way I can see the water, I can look across and see the horizon, which apparently does help a lot of people, and I don't have the busy environment of the top deck to contend with while I'm not feeling great. If you've got a balcony cabin, then you could opt to relax in there with the door open, or just sit out on the balcony for a bit. But personally, I always find fresh air is one of the best cures if you are feeling seasick. On the point of taking it easy though, cruise ships are such busy places, and when you wake up, there will be an agenda or an itinerary or a daily schedule that is crammed full of events and activities. It's really important to just remember that if you aren't feeling great on your cruise, it's absolutely fine to take a few hours out. You don't have to be running around trying to tick everything off. Just take it easy and go and get some air. Number 5, head for the middle of the ship. If you're in the middle of a cruise ship, there will be less motion than what you would experience at the front or the back. That's why when you're booking a cruise ship cabin, it's usually more expensive to book a cabin that's in the middle of the ship. If you're at the front or the back of the ship, you're going to feel the movement a lot more because at the front, it's where the ship generally goes up and down with the waves below. And if you're at the back of the ship, it's where things like the propellers will be expelling water out from the back. That can mean that there's a little bit of, yes, okay, up and down motion, but also some sideways motion back there too. Now that is probably the least technical explanation of movement on a cruise ship that you will ever hear, but in short, avoid the front or the back if you're feeling unwell and head for the middle. Find somewhere like a coffee shop or a seat out on the promenade deck to sit down and try and regulate and stabilise yourself. Number 6, try and find these 2 things. First, green apples, and second, ginger. Let's start by talking about green apples. Now, I'm not sure about the specific reason why green apples is always recommended if you're feeling seasick, but apples generally are really good for neutralising your stomach, and it helps to just settle you if you're feeling not great. I actually saw on a cruise I was on a few months ago that as part of the evening buffet, there was a huge platter of green apples available. At the time, I remember thinking, isn't that weird? There are so many green apples. Usually a cruise ship buffet will have massive displays of goodness knows what exotic fruits. And I thought green apples was a bit of a basic one for them to fill an entire display with. However, the next day was pretty choppy, so was it a coincidence? I guess we'll never know, but green apples is definitely one of the most highly recommended foods to help you if you're feeling unwell. Moving on to ginger. Don't worry, you're not going to have to pack fresh ginger from the fruit and veg section of the grocery store for your next cruise. All you have to do is think about things like ginger tea. Lots of cruise lines out there will have ginger-infused tea bags available at the buffet, or you can buy them from your local store and take them with you. These are really light. All you need is a couple of tea bags, and that should hopefully put you right. You can also take ginger-flavoured candies with you as well. That's another great alternative to seasickness tablets, which we mentioned earlier. So always think green apples and ginger. Where are you going to find them if you don't feel great? Number 7, we're staying on the topic of foods. If you're feeling seasick, it's really important that you try to eat fresh foods and stay away from salty, greasy or fatty foods which will be available to you. This one is a bit of a no-brainer. You're not feeling great, so of course you should try to eat some fresh foods. That buffet on the ship will be so tempting, but the French fries, the chicken burgers, the beef burgers and the chicken strips will absolutely be waiting for you once you feel better. Try to eat something fresh. For example, go to the salad bar and have some greens, have some other vegetables, and hopefully that will help to perk you up if you are feeling under the weather. I recently took a cruise with a cruise line called Fred Olsen Cruise Lines, and I was really surprised to see that on their room service menu, they actually had a section for foods that you can order if you're feeling under the weather. Now don't worry, that doesn't mean that you could not physically order a beef burger. If you wanted one, you could, but this was food options that they had put together that should help to stabilise you if you're not feeling great. Some of them were just real comfort food, home staples, but others were really interesting and they did include some of the things that we've already mentioned. So yes, avoid basically junk fast food if you're not feeling well and try and eat fresh. Number 8, and I bet you were told this growing up, and I'm going to feel a bit like my mother saying it now, but the 8th thing that you can do to either prevent feeling seasick or to try and fight it off and cure it if you do get struck is to keep drinking water and to keep hydrated. This is one of the best ways to fight off anything, seasickness being one of them. I always pack a reusable bottle when I cruise. The brand that I travel with is called Chili's. You can buy them all over the world, and in my experience, they are absolutely the best quality water bottle out there. They keep any liquid cold in a warm climate or hot in a cold climate for hours. It's really impressive how they managed to do it. You can buy Chili's bottles quite often on cruise ships themselves, but you can also buy them from my Amazon store, which I mentioned a few times. Hopefully you're getting the picture now that that Amazon store might be quite useful for your next cruise. To find that, all you have to do is head down to the description of this video or down to a comment that I'll pin, and it'll have the link there for you. Now that's it. That's 8 things that you can do to hopefully either fight off and prevent seasickness from happening or cure it if you do feel unwell on your next cruise. I really hope you've enjoyed this video today. If you have, then please do come and join me over in another one. Over in this video, I'm sharing with you 10 big mistakes that new or relatively inexperienced cruisers seem to keep making over and over again. I made some of these mistakes on my first cruise, and it pains me to see people still making them. So hopefully, I'll see you over there. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.